The concept of regenerative agriculture is just leave the seed in the ground. Don't till. There are products and seeds and new ways of thinking in farming where you can do no-till farming. But the concept is leave all the good stuff in, continue to put the carbon in the ground. And if the entire world went to regenerative agriculture, we wouldn't just stop climate change, we'd reverse it. Like in a short amount of time. That's how powerful this is. So I thought, holy smoke, the concept of an annual event that you slice into something that you determine how much did you perform, and you get, hey, thank you, corn, you got a 3.2 because you only got a half a ear of corn on that. And no one likes the process. The corn doesn't like the process. The land doesn't like the process. That sounds a lot like the annual performance review to me. So I thought, what if the concept about employment was we put more into people's lives than we take out of them?
Welcome to the Work Intelligence Lab by ManpowerGroup, where data sparks the conversation and leaders like Dean help us take it further. I'm your host, Karla Fletcher.
And I'm John Julitz. Today, we're diving into what productivity really means. Every CEO says people are their greatest asset, yet across Europe, 80% of employers can't find the skills they need, while thousands of roles are being cut, often under the banner of AI.
As CNBC puts it, AI has become a convenient excuse. But if talent is scarce and automation isn't a quick fix, then what are we really optimizing? And how can productivity be reimagined to strengthen the workforce?
And that's the question we're putting to Dean Carter. Dean, your work at Patagonia showed what happens when purpose and culture become the ultimate performance drivers. So first, thank you for joining us. And as we talk a little bit more about this purpose and culture question, you've spent your career shaping how organizations think about people and purpose. What's the purpose that guides you?
I have a purpose driven by something I did a long time ago. I started mowing lawns and to make a little money in like fifth grade. And so I mowed a few lawns, but we didn't have a lawnmower. And so I went and borrowed a neighbor's lawnmower. And my dad didn't know it because he just went out there and borrowed it. So I mowed some lawns and I came back and I returned the lawnmower. And my dad said, did you fill it full of gas? He said, did you clean it? I just returned it. He said, never do that again. Always leave things better than you find them. Anything you do. And so that was a metaphor for me in terms of how do I, whether it's companies or people or humans, I've got a responsibility. They're not I don't own humans, but the part of the time that they spend with me, I want to make sure that they're better off for it. And I just try to make sure every single person goes, okay, as a part of the experience that I experienced in the company that you're running the people function for, I'm better off for it. And so that's kind of started with lawn mowing and has grown to my personal purpose, leave everything better than I find it.
And Dean, is that goal of making things better and leaving things in a better place kind of what drove you to want to write your book?
Yes. Actually, the book is called Employee Experience Design, Co-Creating Work Where People and Organizations Thrive. So this was, and every single word of that is very meticulous. It's about driving experiences and designing them by listening to employees and engaging them in the experiences they want to have, just not saying, okay, I'm doing some best practice or read some article and this is how we're going to drive this particular experience. And the most important thing about the book, I think, is not just experiences where, people are having the time of their life and playing ping pong all day long and have great snacks. It is really about where the organization thrives. So the connection in the book is not just about how to make sure that employees have thriving lives, that they're more rich as a result of that, but experiences actually drive productivity and velocity and innovation and sustainable performance for the company. So there's a real thread throughout the whole book about this is what we did, these were the results and the impact on the business. This is what we did, these are results and impact on the business. And in addition to that, having a big impact on the human beings in their lives too.
I love it. First of all, I met you in May in Chicago. And one of the things I walked away with is Dean is a brilliant storyteller. So the fact that you got a book out, I'm very, very happy because it's going to be a great story, I think. And the second thing is that what stood out for me was a story you told us about your days at Patagonia and how you took the company's purpose and evolved that in a completely different way through culture, right? And you spoke about a story about regenerative agriculture to regenerative culture. I'd love you to tell us what that means and then just talk us through that story. It was beautiful. I still speak to people today who were in that room who reference it.
When I arrived at Patagonia, the purpose of the company was build the best product, do no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire solutions to the environmental crisis. That was the whole purpose of the company. And that had been that purpose for a long time. The challenge with that purpose is the middle part. Do no unnecessary harm. That means you're doing harm. You're actually harming the plant process. So it was a little bit of an itch the entire time with the company around that particular statement. So at some point, we found out on an NPR podcast, Yvonne changed the purpose to, we are in business to save our home planet. That's a very different purpose than do no unnecessary harm and inspire others. It's like, we are in business to save our home planet. Every word was very meticulous because the planet's going to live without us, but it's not a very good home to live in at some point if we don't take care of it. So that saving it as our home is like keeping a clean house. So when that came about, we started to think about the business model for Patagonia, about how do we save the planet and how do we do products that actually not just stop climate change or harm things a little less. How do we do it in a way which actually reverses climate change? And there's one industry and one product that can do that, and that's agriculture. Now, this is the concept, and this is how it applies to human beings. I always try to look at the model of the company, whether it was Fossil or Sears or Patagonia or Guild, take what the company does as a purpose and apply those concepts and use that language in the people function as well. Sometimes those are really separate, and I think the business language and the language you use for employees, they need to be, and the models need to be similar. So here's how, quick story on regenerative ag. The traditional agriculture, you put a seed in the ground and the seed starts to grow, and this rich microbial community starts to help the seed make the plant. And it goes into the ground, and this rich microbial community pulls in the nutrients from the ground. It goes in the plant goes into the air, and it starts to sequester carbon. So it goes back and feeds the soil. So it's taking things away from the soil, but also feeding it by bringing carbon into it. And it grows, and a year later, there's 2, 3, 4 pieces of corn on it. The farmer says thank you, rips the corn off, and has a big scraping knife into the middle of it, scrapes it across. And what happens is the microbial community that has helped this thing grow dies. And then this carbon that has been sequestered in the ground goes out. And when you slice into the land over and over and over and do that, you kill it. So the land that we grow food in needs a lot of water. It needs a lot of pesticides and a lot of fertilizers to grow it. So what we're doing is putting poison into the land to grow our food because it's dead. And that means we have all that poison runs into our rivers and our water and all this. The concept of regenerative agriculture is just leave the seed in the ground. Don't till. There are products and seeds and new ways of thinking in farming where you can do no-till farming. But the concept is leave all the good stuff in, continue to put the carbon in the ground. And if the entire world went to regenerative agriculture, we wouldn't just stop climate change, we'd reverse it. Like in the short amount of time. That's how powerful this is. So I thought, holy smoke, the concept of an annual event that you slice into something that you determine how much did you perform, and you get, hey, thank you, corn, you got a 3.2 because you only got a half a ear of corn on that. And there's no one likes the process. The corn doesn't like the process. The land doesn't like the process. That sounds a lot like the annual performance review to me. Like this anyone love the annual review process? Anyone look
Well,
forward to it?
I mean,
Nobody.
We've got a stat from one of our surveys where 27% of employees agree that their performance reviews improve their productivity. So that's not a good percentage,
No,
right?
no, it's something we
So
were
it's a
given.
clear
It's a tool we're
sign
given,
that
and
we're not doing the right
no one
thing.
questioned
Yeah.
it. So I thought, what if the concept about employment was we put more into people's lives than we take out of them? Dr. Jeffrey Pfeffer wrote a great book called Dying for a Paycheck, and it's literally the data and the information on how we're killing people and spending billions of dollars on healthcare to repair the damage we do at work, not just life stress, work stress. So I thought, let's change the concept. And we had a business challenge. So our skiers and climbers were leaving. Our surfers were staying because we were right near the ocean, so they had the time of their life. But the skiers and climbers who need to make skiing and climbing equipment we were selling were leaving because they couldn't do that. So we thought about it for a while, and we thought, let's experiment with a 4-day work week. That way the skiers and climbers can leave and still live in Ventura. And so we implemented this. The thing isn't about the 4-day work week. It's what we did to measure impact. So what we did, we asked people a bunch of questions beforehand that were different than a typical engagement survey. Of course, we asked productivity and we asked velocity and innovation, all the normal questions, level of engagement, whatever that issue is. And then after we asked, and the result of this 4-day work week, 80% of people said they had a better relationship with their spouse. 73% of people said they had time to go to places that they love. 74% of people said they had more time to spend with their children. They had more time to go to the doctor and dentist. They had more time to buy healthy food. No one asks those questions. So in addition to, a slight increase in productivity, a definite increase in innovation, and we kept our climbers and skiers, we improved their relationship with their spouse, their time with their children, the ability to buy healthy food, and to go to the doctor and dentist. It was mind-blowing for us, what we found as a result of it. But there's not a single survey. Have you ever been asked, like, as a result of working here, you have a better relationship with your spouse?
Nope.
Have you ever been asked if, as you're working here, do you have more time to spend with your children?
And
Nope.
can I ask as a follow-up,
Yeah.
where did those questions come from? Who designed them and how were they thought through?
Our HR team came up with a concept, and we
Okay.
worked with a local university to make sure that the questions were validated. So we worked with a social psychologist to make sure these are really valid, good questions that were phrased in the right way. And there were like 60 questions on this. There were a lot. And we got like 99% participation because people were like, ooh, you're asking me that. You care about me. You care about me. You care about me. You care about me. But that's a benefit. Still, it's still a Patagonia, and it's a genie out of the bottle. You can't put that thing back in. It's the number one reason people talk about the favorite thing in Patagonia working for the culture now is that. Now, this all goes back to the business model, which changed to, in the future, Patagonia will be a farming company and a food company. Will probably not be 50 years from now, the company, or 20 years from now. So they started the food business doing innovation on, agricultural practices. So, and we all started learning about regenerative ag. So now you've got a business model that's moving to regenerative practices, and we have an employment model that's moving to regenerative practices, so that each of them can imagine or use the same language.
Dean, you said something earlier that really sparked something, especially if we talk about ripped from the headlines and things that we're all seeing on a daily basis, it feels like, particularly when it comes to layoffs where AI seems to be the thing that is, if not the cause, it's one of the effects of why these moves are necessary. So a couple of questions for you, especially because you talked about the negative aspect of ripping out the ecosystem. And it feels like if you're laying your people off, you're almost ripping out the ecosystem within your company for the sake of efficiencies. It's chalked up to productivity. So when you see these cuts and it's tied to, AI or other factors, pulse check. What's your gut reaction when you see things like that?
I love data. I love data. So I think probably have people with really cool opinions about stuff, but I prefer to go to data. I think it's an excuse right now to do a little house clean. There are definitely jobs that are going to be impacted that can be done with AI agents. We're still going to need to have a human. And what you're determining, there's a great podcast I was listening to this morning, but it talked about the challenge with agents, and they're actually hallucinating in major ways. They're making stuff up. And if you don't have a human not understanding what the outcome is, you don't have someone who understands what the input is. It's like if you have one bad piece of data in there, then it messes up the whole algorithm because it's a large language model. If one thing is off in there, it kind of makes the whole thing go weird. So you're going to have human beings checking out the data models within the large language models to make sure that the agents are actually working and doing the things they're doing. So yeah, we're going to, right now, I think people had some house cleaning. There are definitely some immediate jobs that are going to be impacted by AI. I think it's an excuse because we really haven't gotten the value out of it yet. We've yet to see that.
And bringing it back, when you see fewer people doing more work for companies as they continue to pour money into AI, and it almost feels like we're the age of AI budgets versus the age of AI, how is that really regenerative for people who remain at those companies? And aren't you doing your company a disservice if you're burning out the people that have remained and said you have to do this or else if their job is at risk?
Yeah, all things that look at technology like this. Okay, this is cool and scary. Cool, scary, cool, scary. The cool to scary is actually equal. That's AI. It went kind of cool to scary. And so here's my view of exactly what you're talking about. What can happen with AI is it makes work so much more enjoyable and rich. So you don't have to do all the administrative tasks you're doing. I can tell you, it isn't perfect, and but I use Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Suno. I use a lot of apps to make my life easier every day. Yesterday, CarPlay stopped working in my Jeep on the way to Los Angeles. I need CarPlay to work. I don't know why it turned off, but I have to have it because I have to have hands-free driving. So I pulled over. I said, ChatGPT, CarPlay doesn't work. And it said, oh, this is a common problem with Jeeps. There's an issue with Uconnect. Right now, turn the call off and push the volume button and this button for 10 seconds. Hold them for 10 seconds. It'll reset the system and CarPlay will come back on. Okay, that saved my life, saved me from a traffic ticket, and got me on time to the UCLA conversation I needed to get to, because without the GPS, I couldn't handhold this, and it probably prevented me from running into someone because I'm looking at my phone on the GPS. So that, just a tiny example of like, it saved me time, could have saved my life. I got to the event on time. I did my work better. Though it's just a tiny example of how AI can be super, super helpful. Now, I also made a batch of passion fruit jalapeno jam, and it got it all wrong. It's messed it up. So that it's not perfect, I don't know how to make jalapeno jam, so it wasn't like the news for me. So my point is, yes, AI can make work wonderful and so much better, just like it helped me with my car and CarPlay. So we can help that. At the same time, you kind of got to know what you're doing. You got to know how to make
Right.
jalapeno jam to know that it's actually telling you how to do it wrong. So it affirms kind of what you already know, makes life easier. It's not a big excuse to like lay off a bunch of people. I think that's a cop out.
And as we're talking about people and productivity
Yeah.
and culture, right? AI, yes, it makes you more productive. Right? Yeah, it's my personal assistant. I go to for all sorts of things. Sometimes it doesn't tell me the right day of the week. Like it tells me it's Friday or on a Wednesday.
But you
Like you
know what
said,
day
not
it is, so that's okay.
right. Thank goodness for that.
And then I
Uh,
appreciate when AI Karla comes back and says, "You're absolutely right. I was wrong." Like,
I mean,
really, thank you.
I
in
know.
every relationship argument, I am right, and thank goodness for ChatGPT for relationship advice, because
Right.
it makes me
Yeah.
very confident in my arguments. But and we've talked about, like, there's the geopolitical issues going on. There's all these crazy things going on, cost cutting, and like you said, are we pulling the wool over everybody's eyes with cutting jobs because of AI? Um, and it's creating anxiety. So with that anxiety, people are reporting high stress every day and all of those things because they're things out of their control. And with that, how do we then balance that building of culture under this pressure? Is our culture becoming a casualty of all these crises going on, right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then maybe, I don't know if you got any advice on that.
Well, I think culture's such a soft word or hard word, depending on how you think about it. Like, how do you measure culture? Like, what it is? We've never really been able to put our finger on, like, what is culture? We talk about culture a lot, but have you ever seen like a measurement of culture? Like, it's really hard to get data. I'm working on this problem, by the way. I'm working on solving like how
Let
to
us know when
actually
you get there.
measure culture. So anyhow, I'll talk about that. That's another challenge I'm working on, but I think there's a way to do it. Here's what's going on. I do know a lot about AI and what it takes to get value out of AI. I work with a guy named Michael Prost who wrote a book called AI Value Creation. He's in Germany and he's an expert on how to do this. The number one issue why AI fails in a company: culture. People
Yeah,
are scared of it. They're afraid it's going to take their job and they
exactly.
sabotage it. They don't accept it. And I know so many people have a Microsoft whatever implemented Gemini on their system and they don't use it because they're afraid of it. So if you want to have AI adoption, you want to maximize the value of it, the very first thing you have to do is create a culture of trust, because they're going to sabotage it and it's not going to work. They're going to sabotage the system. They're going to let it mess up. Like, they're going to let it fail because they're like, look, I told you, I'm a lot better than this thing. So to make AI work, you have to create an environment of trust. If you just immediately start laying people off and doing decisions like this and changing jobs without it being thoughtful, then your AI strategy, for as clever it is, and however much money you paid the consultants and the gazillions of dollars you probably paid the AI company to implement this whatever system is supposed to, this doodad that's going to solve this doodad new problem. I don't know. I think at this moment, we need to be really thoughtful about bringing people into the conversation, the solution, not having the solution on top of them, which is employee experience design, bringing employees into the process. Goes back to the book. Like, bring them into the process. Don't AI at them, AI with them.
Mm.
And by doing that, you'll bring them along. They'll feel like their job is better for it. You'll drive more productivity and value out of your AI program. But until we get there, you're going to be wasting your money on AI because it will sabotage it.
Is the larger challenge sort of, if we were to zoom out a little bit, that we need more of the human and human resources?
We've always needed more human. We need human in all the resources. We need to recognize that's a big part of what was so beautiful about the culture in Patagonia. And just to recognize that there was a moment, we have on-site childcare, and I was walking into the office, and one of my employees was dealing with a kid who was getting out of the car and having a meltdown. Like screaming, crying, kicking, and I thought, she's going to not have a great day today. If I didn't know that she's a human being and I just walked by in that moment, I'm like, what's wrong with her? She's not very productive today. Of course she's not productive. She's thinking about her kid and kind of doing that. That's putting human at work and understanding kind of the things they're dealing with in life. It's like Severance, the show. It's impossible to separate work and life. So to understand, we need to have an understanding of what it is uniquely to be human. As a matter of fact, we're obliterating all the things in our nature are natural to human. I'm really doing a lot of work and study on these things. Like, for example, babies. What are the 2 things they do within the first year, in addition to poop? But they cry and they giggle.
Mm.
They giggle. What are they laughing at? No one told them that's funny. This is what you laugh at. No one taught them to laugh. But they cry for whatever pain or whatever, this is their way of communicating, but they giggle and they laugh. Laughter and play is so innately human, and then we squashed it out of work. Squashed it. So the one of the most uniquely human things is to laugh and to play. We do it not because we're humans. We do it because we're mammals, actually. Dogs play, cats play, bears play, dolphins play. We just need to understand what is the nature of humans. And as we do more AI, I have 3 concepts I think we need to really protect. First one is like value experience. Because the more experienced I am, the more I know that AI is messing up. I wasn't experienced in making passion-fruit jalapeno jam, so I know I mess up. I can have a little experience with CarPlay, and so I can kind of understand what I need to do with that. And that's how I judge what's going on with AI, because I have 30 years of work experience, and I can go, that's crazy or that's interesting. We don't value experience. As a matter of fact, wisdom, we we find ways of eliminating people who carry the wisdom of the company with horrible, retirement programs. And I think we're going to need to honor the wisdom and the experience of people more. Fresh eyes are wonderful. But they're not the be all to end all. I do think we need to value wisdom and experience.
We are seeing
Second thing is
that knowledge sharing gap in the workforce
so important.
is
And they're the
huge
ones
at the moment.
who get laid off first, by the way. Those are
Yeah.
typical, like, oh, they make a lot of money, so. And
We
then
can bring in younger, cheaper talent.
younger, cheaper talent.
They know tech, they can be more efficient, and all the other buzzwords that go with, whether it's, not to bring it back only on AI, but, the digital first kind of people, the workforce, they can come in, they can be, cheaper, they work longer, they don't have families to think about, so we don't have to worry about overworking them and staying late. And, there's opening up a can of worms with that one, but it feels like, we're, putting the folks with the knowledge out to pasture for the sake of saving a few on the bottom line.
And I think you're actually losing money, because the knowledge and the information that's there the work just looks different, when you have wisdom. The other part is really leaning into the concept of, like, AI isn't curious. It can pretend to be, and you can kind of train it. But the concept of awe and wonder and, like, being curious and creative, it can help me be more creative, actually. I find that is actually, I can be more creative, but at the end of the day, I own that now, the thing. And the third thing is just this concept of wit and being clever. So I do this wisdom, wonder, and wit. And how do we really lean into those concepts of allowing people to play and be, and be playful and be human? Awe and wonder and just being curious and making space to take risk around that, and really valuing experience that had been collected over time. We've lost so much on that, and I just think we could accidentally. I asked ChatGPT, when is the moment that AI will determine that humans are no longer necessary?
Wow.
And so it said, "Oh, wow. That you asked that question is what makes you such a human."
Hmm.
I would never have
See,
asked
always
that
tells you
question.
always tells you you're right.
I know it always doesn't matter. But then it said, here's the thing about it. Went through a whole bunch of stuff, but it said, here's how it closed. AI in itself will not determine that humans are unnecessary. But if you're not paying attention, the power that makes you uniquely human, and these power that humans uniquely have, will be quietly and unknowingly given away.
Hmm.
That is what could happen. Like we don't we need to understand what is uniquely human and what do we do and we want to keep because we could just unknowingly and quietly give it away and it actually isn't way as good as being human.
You had you spoke about this earlier, and we're speaking about being human, and how to assess, what you did when you assessed your team with that questionnaire or the engagement survey, whatever you want to call it. So, if we want to make people healthier, more skilled, more connected, what changes, right? And then, everybody wants to. Do we stop measuring productivity? What does productivity mean? What does productivity mean to you? I suppose is the first question. And the second question is, how do we get to a place where we can become more human and look at those human elements to measure?
I think that the concept of particularly the chief people officer is going to have to get broader and think about how work gets done. So it's going to be, I think, evolved to the chief work officer, which includes this combination of people and machines and how to get the best out of both of these things. So I think we need to not just have someone who's just what we don't want to do is give all this work to the chief technology officer who AIs everything. We do want to have this person who understands the concept of, managing and working at work. Yes, productivity is wildly important. That we can now measure using AI, connecting productivity to things and investments we do in employees. I can connect to if you have a situation where you're more healthy at work or you're experiencing awe and wonder and play, I can connect that to either velocity as a time to product to fill. I can actually connect those things to now to productivity. There are things now that we're going to be able to connect human behavior and to outcomes and productivity that we made assumptions about that are going to be really, really important. But creativity is super important. The ability to innovate is important. The ability to take risks is really important. And the way to understand what's going on, because the annual engagement survey, for example, to kind of understanding is, I compare this to taking a picture of yourself in Chicago in July and then showing up in February based on the photo you took in July. You are going to freeze. It's not gonna be appropriate. So
Wildly different.
why do we take a picture one day a year, and then that's how we plan we spend thousands of dollars planning to that one picture, and it's completely irrelevant for February. At Sears, we talked a lot about Patagonia, but we had 270,000 employees, and we didn't have that much money. It was a challenge. So what we did is like, how do we understand how the experience people are having without a giant survey? And how do we understand it daily? So we hacked into the time clock, the Cronus system, and we tested, either doing this before they checked in or after they checked out. So we determined the best way to get this piece of information was at the time of clocking out, just before they clocked out. And we asked this question: what's your energy level today? And you could pick, I'm highly energized, I'm exhausted. And there were no such thing as emojis back then, but so we made like little smiley faces that were like, yeah, and then like a grumpy one. And so they pick five, emotions from highly energized to exhausted. We turned it on, and across Sears and Kmart in the stores and warehouses, we got 70,000 pieces a day of data just started coming in. Like, what do we do with that? So we understood immediately, like, this store's highly energized. This store is exhausted all the time, consistently. So we then have like this consistent, like A/B testing is really important. You have a single piece of data and you have to be able to test it against something else. So we were able to determine what managers are doing really well. When we have a new manager, how quick are they recovering the store? Are they destroying the store? I could allocate my resources specifically to challenging situations or really good ones. I could ignore the middle. They're doing fine. They're doing great. But if something really good, what's happening? And because I didn't have tons of money, I could allocate the HR business partner right to that store. Go to Pennsylvania 1022 tomorrow and interview and find out what's going on. We could predict success of a district manager, success of a store manager, know the behaviors that were driving that, changed everything. We got written up by MIT because it was such a mind-blowing way of thinking about this. And it's a simple question, what's energizing and what's exhausting? And actually, we would compare, like store traffic. Like, there would be tons of store traffic because we did traffic counters. You'd think that would be exhausting when there's more people in the store. Not true. If the processes were efficient and they're having a good experience with a customer, your busiest days were your most engaging.
Mm.
If you had bad processes and you were delivering bad experiences to customer all day, it was a horrible day. And you can have sometimes when people had no people coming in and it was a bad day. So it wasn't about like, am I working hard? It was about like the experience am I having isn't efficient and am I enjoying it? And I'm energized when I'm in the flow and I'm with customers and make them happy and they're coming in. When there's a few people coming in and they're grumpy and I have to give them, a set of bad tires or whatever it is, and I can't deliver what I want to deliver, then you get frustrated. So I did this everywhere. I did this at Patagonia. We measured energy levels at Guild. We were able to determine how to impact remote work because there's a myth out there that if you work remote, then the only way to increase productivity and understand they're doing work and not for them not to be depressed and lonely, not to go community is get them back in the office. Not true.
Mm.
And the data says different because I was curious about it because Guild was 100% remote work company. And I gave a team like, solve it. Show me some data. So we invented a role that doesn't exist in any other company called a community captain. And we had people who you could drive. We did the math around how long it would take to drive. So everyone lived within a radius of like an hour and a half drive. So all the people, we picked a captain, we paid them more money, and they said, you define community. It's all the way from VP to hourly worker, across from IT, HR, finance, legal, whoever. It was all based on geography. And they built communities. And what happened was engagement levels when the entire world in tech companies went down. As a matter of fact, they had to reset the benchmarks because engagement was sucking so much. The benchmark went down like 5 points. Our engagement levels went up 6 points that year after years and years of decline. Engagement went up 6 points. And I feel like I belong at Guild, which was something we were trying, and I feel like safe to take risk, went up 13 points. Though you don't have those type of changes year on year.
Mm.
This was remarkable change. And the place that we saw it were the ones where they had the most active communities. Orlando and Chicago had really strong active communities, completely turned energy levels around. And the place that stayed the same and went a little worse was the office place in Denver. So the people coming to the office actually had a worse experience and got worse than the people in Orlando and Chicago. That's not my opinion. That's what the data says. So I don't know. I think sometimes we get caught in these myths and things, and I really believe in the scientific method and how to test everything.
The legacy way has always been if you're having fun at work, you're not working. You're
Yep.
mucking about. I remember when I first started working 20 odd years ago, it was like that, you know, um, stop messing about, get on with the job. But we live here every day, so having fun, it like energizes you, more people, more engagement. Absolutely. So one of the previous projects that you worked on, I remember you talking about, do we measure output versus failure or learning, etc. Just talk us through that. I loved that.
Okay, this was related to the annual performance review.
Yeah.
So, what happens is if, say, and this is about the pay is determined right now, and for most companies, the program that we're given is if you have a good year, you perform well, then you get a base pay increase, a bonus, and potentially some equity depending on your job. So everything goes up, regardless of your capability or skills. What we started looking at is like, okay, how do you think about these concepts really different? Because the pay scales are all determined about capability and skill level from expert to novice to expert, but we don't talk about the building of skills. So here's what happens. Let's say you have a person who takes a ton of risk and actually doesn't meet their goal that year, but they took some risk and they're learned and they're much more valuable. In the normal system, they don't get a pay increase and they don't get a bonus. Now you have someone who's a much more smart and much more capable and able to do something even better the next year, and you've just punished them for it. No more innovation, no more risk taking, and the person who didn't learn a thing but did the same thing over and over and over again pretty well gets an increase. And then what happens is the person who does that over and over, kind of average real well, their pay gets so high that they're like, wow, why is, Bill getting paid that much money? He's just kind of average. And that's because he's been a little bit above average every year for year and give him increases. So I separate those. We do skill to capability pay. If your skills increase, your base pay goes up. If you have a great year, you get a bonus. So that's based on outcomes. Your bonus every year is based on your contribution for the past 12 months. And if you deliver that, bonus. If you grow your skills and capabilities, and the whole process determine kind of how you measure it, how the conversation with employees, that's rewarding your learning. And that's what we want. The program doesn't reward learning. It just like whatever you need to do to get this output, then you get the increase. The output's actually really, really important sustainably. If you can get better creativity and innovation out of people, this skills to market conversation is so much better than the current compensation structure that we're just assuming is the right structure. So yeah, everyone, this is also heretical, but it's a different way of thinking about pay. And you have to do some work to understand, have a really honest conversation with a manager on what your skills are and how are you growing them. And now with AI, you can have the conversation. And then I can tie very specific skills and capabilities to very specific outcomes and which ones are the most likely to drive it. So in a very democratized sort of way and very agile sort of way. These are new concepts that we have. These are where AI can do some really cool things for us that we've never been able to do before.
Would you say that is a failure of either, companies or the individual leaders, the stakeholders at those organizations, as a failure to develop people, to create new leaders, to, continue to invest in their people within the organizations? Is it an organizational, a systemic failure?
I think the system is set up to not take risk. The pay system is to be as safe as possible and kind of just get a little bit above, whatever your goal is. Set a really safe goal, achieve your really safe goal a little bit more, and then move on. That's what the system rewards. It doesn't reward, like, how do I set a really hard goal? And if I don't achieve it, do I still get rewarded for the risk I took but actually achieved more than I would have achieved if I just set a tiny little goal? Where the system is not, it's not designed to do the things. It was designed by someone 50 years ago. We're still using the same exact incentive system that we designed 50 years ago. No one's really rethinking it. Like if you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing, there's no competitive advantage to that. You better be doing something that's a little bit better, like that is your practice and the right practice for your company, but best practice, last practice, worst practice, my view. Someone ever said, oh, we need to pursue best practices. I'm like, no. Best practice is average. Best practice is some consulting companies average. And I'm not interested in average.
Definition of insanity, right? Keep on doing the same thing every day and expect something different.
It's a thing that was done from a survey from some consulting company like 2 years ago. Even best practice is usually stale by the time it's out. Anyhow, it's always we need to be a lot more innovative, imaginative, experimentative, and allow those cultures to thrive. And companies, there are really great companies that really lean into the concept of innovation, and they support that, and those are the ones that are thriving.
As you say that, right? It's really hard to feel like taking risks. Really hard to feel sort of creative and innovative with everything that's going on. A lot of people are going, let's just stay in my lane, do the same thing, be safe. What would you say? Well, how would you go into an organization or to an individual and say, change that view or this is how I would change that view?
The world is moving. And if you're not like moving with it and innovating and keeping an eye on it, if you're just hunkered down and your whole organization is hunkered down and not moving and thinking, they're just playing it safe, then then you're not going to be a leading company in what's going on. People are not going to take the risk to. You need to take a little risk. All great companies support a bit of risk within reasonable. I don't want the accounting team to take risk. Like there are groups that are like, don't take risk there. The quality team, don't take risk there. But there's places you want to encourage risk, and there's a difference in risk and courageous leadership. I mean,
Yeah.
just so I think we lack a lot of courageous leadership at the moment, and I think it's easy to hunker down and hide in this moment versus I think what employees want is for leaders to like stand and go, this is what we stand for,
Mm.
and not bend and break and whatever. Oh, we stood for that. We got a little pressure. Then we're going to do this. Oh, we got a little more pressure. Then we're over here. And then you're like headless. We need a lot more leaders who go, this is what we stand for. This is what we're going to do. This is what we always stand for. We're steering the ship this way. We may take a little hit in the gut right now because of the situation, but this is what we stand for. And I long term, people have memories. And the ones that have leaders who are courageous, even in challenging times, that's what purpose and values are. It's how you behave when times are hard. It's not how you behave when times are good. If you really want to know the value of a company and what they really value, know what they do when they get pushed back.
So we have to do better than rewarding people whose best mentality is to get along, you go along.
Yeah, you have to be smart. But my view is you have to know what you stand for. That's my basic, so Patagonia gives 1% of top line profit to grassroots organizations. Revenue, not profit, revenue. So if they don't make a profit, they still give 1% to the planet every year, even in an unprofitable year. 1% of revenue. So there was a time a few years back when there was an election, they were really concerned about how the planet was going to be treated by the new leader. And we didn't know because Black Friday was coming up. We didn't know what to do. So we're like, God, what do we close all the stores? Do we put black windows up? Do we say go volunteer, go, what did we do? And so a marketing person who had been through orientation, who understood the purpose of Patagonia said, well, what if on Black Friday we gave 100% of the revenue away, not 1%? Every dime, the biggest day of the year. And the head of marketing said, I love it. And they sent a text to the CEO, and the CEO said, I love it. And the CEO sent a text to the founders, and they said, perfect. So without doing any marketing, without doing anything, we put just a sign up to say 100% of everything that we sell will go to grassroots environmental efforts on Black Friday. We usually make $3-4 million, and that's how much we expect to give away. We gave away $11 million that day across the world. Everyone in Germany, in Japan, everyone, Australia, everyone did it. $11 million. Guess how much money we spend on advertising?
Zero.
Zero.
Mm.
What happened in that year? More people came back, they bought more stuff, and we had a record year of revenue and profits and a halo for the next 3 years of record years and profits because of that decision of spending $11 million to make $50 million
Love it.
or $1 billion. That the decision made by a frontline worker new to the company was so clear about the risk taking and the purpose that they did that. And there's another really beautiful example. We were in the office one time, and the Esquire magazine called and said, do you know what's in your shorts? What? Do you know what's in your shorts? And I'm like, I don't know. We're like, lining? And they said, no. Flip the tag. And on the back of the tag, it said, vote the assholes out.
Mhm.
We're like, we didn't know. Who did that? So a designer put in one of our most popular shorts on the back of the tag. When you flip it, it said, vote the assholes out. And so we're like, holy smoke, we did not know that. So Esquire ran a thing like Patagonia's tag, and it had it flipped up that said both the assholes out in like this major article. So anyhow, we sold all those shorts. We couldn't make enough like both the asshole shorts out. As they just like became a collector's item. So we 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 sold a lot of shorts. Again, how much money did we spend? Guess how much?
Yeah.
Guess whose permission they asked to do that?
No
They
one.
just knew because of the purpose, they could take that risk and they would be rewarded for it, and they got a promotion. So anyway, that's risk, but it's
Chris,
risk based on purpose and understanding
Yeah.
what the company stands for and doing it. There's one thing that came up yesterday. It was like, how do I work for a purpose-driven company? Or if I work for a company that doesn't have a purpose, like how do we get to that? And I said, well, you're always going to be able to work for a purpose-driven company, or the purpose may be to make a ton of money. And I just gave the example at Sears when in Kmart, where the purpose was to make a lot of money, and we were not making money. Purpose was to survive at that point. So I went to the team, the HR team, didn't know what to do because we were people leaving in droves, and it was just depressing. So I put up a picture of the Titanic on the screen on the town hall, 6,000 people on the HR team. I said, we are on the Titanic. This thing is going down and I can't stop it. So here's what, and this is it. But we're going to be the band because of a lot of scared people on this boat who are really terrified, and we need to play beautiful music. And you're going to be the best trombone player, the best drummer, the best flute player, the best triangle ringer. And I promise you that when this boat goes down, you'll be in a much better boat than the one you got into. So our purpose is to be the band for all these people who are terrified and scared right now, and play beautiful music and do great HR. So the purpose of the company was to make money. It wasn't really inspiring, but the purpose to be the band, the miniature purpose, was wildly inspiring. And so no one left. They didn't leave.
I feel like that's what we need to do around the all this anxiety around the world is, well, let's just start a band, guys.
Start playing, like doing the job well and enjoying it. So we started playing the band. We did really amazing HR. We won awards for doing amazing HR. We invented things that we have like 16 patents that came out of the innovation in that moment. As of 3 weeks ago, people who were early in career, 25 of them now are chief people officers
Yeah.
in major companies. That you'll be in a better boat than the one you got in.
Love it. Okay, well, on behalf of John and I, Dean, I just want to say, it's been an absolute pleasure. Absolutely love the stories that you and advice that you give, and I think hopefully some people can use that to implement in their businesses or in their departments or probably in their households. But you've got a new book coming out called Employee Experience Design. You've got a book coming out on that, which is very relevant. And when is that coming out, Dean?
It is actually able for pre-order right now.
Yeah.
So you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and pre-order, which would be great. And we go to print, and you'll have a copy in your hand on January 27th.
We'll drop a link in the description so you can check out Dean's book. Highly recommend. And I think if I had a takeaway from the conversation, and we could, do session 2 and multiple sessions and just go into all the other topics that are now percolating after having the conversation, would be almost the courageous risk taking, but how to do it in a thoughtful, purpose-driven, human way.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you so much.